So we were discussing break statement. So when you have a break statement inside a loop, whenever Python meets break, it will come out from the loop. That's what you have to remember. So in this for loop, inside the for loop, you have a break statement. Whenever it meets break, it will come out from the for loop, right? It will come out for the for loop and it will execute the next line. So in this particular case, print done. So that's what we were discussing. Now let's see how this will run. Now if you run this, right, it asks a number. Let me put 5. There's no issue. It will print as it is. Goes from 0 to 4. Then let me run again, run module. Let me put 25. Okay, it ends up 10. Why ends up 10? We know I start with 0, it goes on 0, 1, 2, 3, no issue. But whenever you have 10, right, 10 is greater than 9. So after printing 10, you check whether 10 is greater than 9, it will break out. So which means irrespective of you put the value, after 10 it won't print, right? That means if you put let's say 11, it ends with 10, because if you put 11, it goes from 0 to 10, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, a quick question. If I put let's say 10, what is the outcome? Can one of you tell me what is the outcome if I put 10?
Go to 9.
Exactly. It will go to 0 to 9. Right? And then let me finish today this one with print done. So now I put done, which means once you break, it will come out from the loop and it will execute the next line, which means this line. So if I say run module, if I put let's say 5, it will print from 0 to 4 done. Let's say you put 25, it will print up to 10, then you have done, right? I hope you got this right. Those who have finished up to this point, can you please raise your hand so that we can move to the next one? Okay, thanks. We'll move to the next one then. Next one is called continue. Right. Now continue works like this. Whenever Python meets continue, right, it will not execute anything below. It will go to the next iteration. Right? It's something like this. Now now in here, for example, here what happens? Whenever you meet break, right, you come out from this, right? That's exactly what has happened with the break statement. Continue, on the other hand, whenever it meets continue, it will go to the next iteration. So that will what will happen? Something like this. Now let's say let me say like this. So in this particular case, we are going inside the loop, and then whenever it meets continue, right, it will go to the next iteration. Let's say you start with 1 here. So then you check 1, you print 1, and you check whether the division, this is modulo operator, you divide 1 by 2, you check the remainder. Is it 0? No, right? No means you don't go inside. So that means you execute this one as well. But if you have 2, for example, next line is 2. When you have a 2, what will happen? 2 divided by 2 remainder is 0, so that means this is satisfied. You go to continue, which means you are going to skip this line. Okay, let me get a smaller example and then I will explain the code. Right, let me use for loop for I in range. Let me put 1, 11. So you know what will happen here. When you have a print statement, it will go to print 1 to 10, right? Then let me modify this. Right, after this I'm going to say print done. Now if I run this time what will happen? Each time it will print and it will say done. Okay, got the point? Right, I'm going to change now. I'm going to add continue here. So if I take this one, I'm going to say if, right, I is equal to 5, then I'm going to say continue. Now what will happen? What is my output? Can one of you guess?
After 5, no done, right? No done coming after 5, is it?
Yes. How about the others? So one answer is after 5 there's no done. That means it will print 1 done, 2 done, 3 done, 4 done, 5 done, and then after that 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's what you are saying, right?
That's what. No. Only under 5.
Only under 5.
We haven't done. Yeah. Others, yeah, we have done under all the money.
That's exactly, yes. So after 5 there's no done. Because why? When I is 5, you meet continue, meaning you are going to skip this one and you go to the first place. You got the point, right? Right. Okay. Now I think I can now explain what will happen in the code. So I will write another script. You can also write the same with me. So I'm going to open a new one. Right. So in this one, what will happen? This is the total. If you remember, we have done this piece of code last week as well. Sorry, yesterday. So it's actually calculate the total from 1 to 10. So we have a total variable. We make the total to 0, and we have for I in range 1, 11, and we have print I, and then we will have total equal total plus I, right? And at the end we have print total equals, we have total. Simply what will happen, let me save this. This is program number 12. Continue, right? So when I run this, what happens? Simply you will see it will print 1 to 10. At the same time it will calculate the total. So if you add all the numbers from 1 to 10, you will get 55. If you remember, I told you to try this. You can try print statement here. It'll you can print I and total to get an idea. So if I run again, you will see how it happens. So when you have 1, I is 1, we can put like this. Let me put I is this, and then we have total equals total, right? So let me run this, run module, right? So when you put that, you know that when I is 1, total is 1. When I is 2, total is 3, because earlier we had 1 plus 2, it becomes 3. Then I is 3, total is 6, that means 3 plus 3 is 6. Then 6 plus 4 is 10, 10 plus 5 is 15, 15 plus 6 is 21, 21 plus 7 is 28, 28 plus 8 is 36, 36 plus 9 is 45, finally 45 plus 10 is 55. Right, now the next part we are going to do this. We are going to divide the number, let's say 10, by 2, and we'll check the remainder whether this is equal to 0. It's 0, right? What do you mean by 10 divided by 2 equals to 0? So that means 10 is divisible by 2, right? Now in that case, I will add now this one, so we know what happens here. I can remove this one. Instead, I'm going to put this. What I'm going to do this, if you divide by 2 and if the remainder is 0, then you are going to say continue. Right, now can you tell me what is the output of this one? Now previous one, it finds the total of numbers from 1 to 10. So in this case, it finds a total of what?
Total of odd numbers?
It should be total of odd numbers. Yes, whenever the number is even number, what will happen? It means it meets this condition, isn't it? Whenever the number is even number, that means 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10, continue, meaning it will not add to the total. So let's run this, run module, right? So you will get 25, meaning you add 1, 3 is 4, 5, 9, 16, right? 25. So it's basically adding only the odd numbers. Right, if you have finished up to this point, can you please raise your hands so that we can move to the next one. Again, if you are having any issue of understanding or errors in your code, please make sure that you type in the chat, or you can use the channel. Right, you can always use the chat. Right. How about Sahan Lianarachi? Have you finished or still working on Sahan?
Yeah, I'm fine here.
Yeah. Shamal Fonseca? Okay, right. I'm assuming that you have all finished, right? So I'll move to the next one then. Now that we have learned this one, we completed what is left from last session. So as I told you, today my topic is functions and modules, and basically I'm going to discuss functions today and hopefully modules next week, right? Okay, having said that, so let's start. Now we already learned a couple of functions, right? Print is a function, help is a function, type is a function, range is a function, right? We know how to use existing one. Sometimes we call built-in functions, right? Now sometimes we want to write our own functions for two purposes. One thing is we want to reuse it. Sometimes if you want to do the same thing again and again, you can create a function, right? So let's look at how we can write functions in Python, right? So in this one, right, we are going to look at how to write functions. So the writing function is, it's basically you name a set of Python statements. Right? You have a set of Python statement, you put into one block and provide your name. And whenever you need, you call with that name. Simply you can think like that. Right? So this is very helpful when you want to write program. You can organize nicely. And sometimes if you write a code for one project, you can reuse it to another project. So in Python, this start with def. You are meaning defining a function, and then you provide a name for the function and any parameters. You know that, for example, help, we have to provide what to print, isn't it? And we have to provide how to separate the values in print function. We have to provide how to end, right? So likewise, whenever write a function, we have to provide what is needed within the function. So these are called parameters. Right, now let me start with a simple code. Right, I'm going to get the shell first. I think shell is better. Right, so I'm going to try this function add 2, 3. Now there's no function called add here, so I'm going to create a function. So how to create a function? We say def, we say name of the function add, and we have to put parameters. Now we are getting 2 numbers, isn't it? So I'm going to say okay, number 1, and we can say number 2, right? And simply I'm going to print the outcome. We will say number 1 plus number 2. Right. So now we have defined the function. Now we can reuse it. So whenever you want to call it, you can say add 2, 3. So it's tell us 5. Add, let's say 4, 5. 9. Or we can have like some graphics like this. If you remember the code from this, let's say def triangle, I'm going to say in, we'll say 1, n plus 1, no, we will say in, we will say in. So I'm going to draw a triangle using asterisks. If you remember, same things that we have discussed early, right? So let me use text to print a triangle. So I'm going to say for I in range, I'm going to say 1, n plus 1. Okay. And then I'm going to say print. I will put asterisk, multiplication, and then I. If you do not understand, I will explain. So I have defined this function. So let me try one more time. Triangle. Let me put 5. Yes, we are getting. Let's triangle. Let's say 10. You know, we are getting like this. So I hope now you understood the idea. So you can simply, create functions. Okay, try this, and if you finish, please let me know by raising your hands. If you have finished up to that point, any questions? Those who do not understand the triangle function, you can ask me to explain, then I can explain in case if you do not get it. But otherwise it's fine. But please let me know. Basically how I did it, triangle in, meaning let's say 5. I want to print numbers from 1 to 5. So that means starting value should be 1. If I want to print 5, I have to add 1, that means 6, 1 to 6, right? So that's why when I put n, I put 1, n plus 1, because I want to go from 1 to n plus 1. So if it is n is 5, my range goes from 1 to 6, which means it will print 1 to 5. When I put n is 10, 10 plus 1, it will be 11. Right.
One question. So,
Yep.
how the type is determined here? I mean, as in the argument.
That's a good question. I mean, it depends. It's not like in other programming language. Now, for example, if you want to add floating point, it's a really good question. Who asked the question, by the way?
Bamu.
Okay, actually, good question, Bamu. The reason for this is interesting question. Now, once I define, the beauty in Python is you have to be careful as well. You can use this function to add anything, like let's say floating point numbers. Okay, I put plus. Sorry. So that was a mistake. Comma. It led. So it automatically knows. I told you, like, it's dynamic typing, meaning whenever you type the arguments, Python identifies this, and accordingly we use plus, so it adds two floating point numbers together. Now similarly, you can have text as well. Now when you have a text, it's not really addition. What happens? Yes, outcome of this, can you guess?
Yeah. 1020.
Exactly. So you know that this is how Python handles the types.
Okay, thank you.
So if you want to restrict, then you have to have additional statement inside the function to check the input. Right now we have not checking user inputs. User can type anything, but generally when you define some functionality, it can work with all the different data types. So if it is in some other programming language, I hope you know that you have to define, right? You have to define, let's say, for integer and floating point number, you may have to define two different functions. But in Python, no, it determines automatically, right? So if you put integer, right, it adds as an integer. If you put float, if you add a float, I guess if you put int and float, then ideally it should convert both to float and add.
So in the same example, what if we used multiplication here, input two strings? So will it?
No, then you'll get an error. You know that you can't break the rules. Yeah, similar thing. Like you can't multiply two strings, you are getting an error. Yes, definitely. So you have to be very careful. Like you should understand what's happening with the functions. But Babu, that was a really good question, which I never thought in this manner to explain you like what might happen. But yeah, it supports any data type. Right. Any other questions? Okay. If you have no questions, I'm switching to the next one. Okay, now you can lower the hands. Right. Okay, I hope you are comfortable with function. And then the next one is calling function that we have already done. You can, with the name, you can provide the arguments, the values, right? And depend on the value provided, you can get an output. Right. Okay. Okay. Very simple one. Can you do this within 1 minute time? A small function to calculate area of a rectangle. If you are finished, you can raise your hand. At the same time, please post your code in the chat. Okay, I have got Manake's answer. We can say area, rectangle, length, width, and we can simply say okay, length into width. So whenever you want to call it, we are getting the answer. Okay, good. Right, now let's move to the next one. Now if you look at how functions are defined in Python, now these are some what we call built-in functions. Now absolute value is the first one. ABS means absolute value, right? It takes one argument. Power of meaning exponential 2 to the power 3, 7 to the power 4, and so on. Then the max actually can take arbitrary argument. Right, now these functions we call their return values, which means whenever you call a function, the value is returned to the main program. Whenever you call the function, right? So let me show you. So you can try with me. Now simply the idea is, when we have ABS, right, and let's say 5, it will give you 5. But if you say ABS minus 5, it's give us 5, right, meaning the absolute value of the number. Now if you compare this what we have used, let's say answer, and if I put let's say ABS minus 5, right, and then we can say print answer, which means whenever you call this function, the value is returned back here, right, and then we assign it to answer. Now, what if our problem that we have created the add function, right? 2, 3. So I'm going to say that now this one as answer, let's say 1 equals add 2, 3. Okay, immediately after when you put this assignment, you get the result. And if you try to print the answer, you get none. Right? In Python, none means, so there's no value inside the variable answer 1. So what really happens? Now this is what will happen. Now when you write the add, I will go to add function here, definition. Whenever we write this, what will happen when you call add 2, 3, right? It will assign these values. 2 is assigned to number 1, 3 is assigned to number 2, and it will print there. The value is not coming back. So if you want to update this so that it will coming back, instead of print, we have to use return. So all these functions are functions with return values, right? Because of that, right, let me change my, now you see what has happened here. So I will redefine add function. So this time I'm going to say, okay, number 1 and number 2, right? Instead of, okay, I forgot to print colon. Instead of putting print, I'm going to say return. And I'm going to return number 1 plus number 2. Right. Now this time, whenever you use, let's say, answer 1, previous one, exactly as it is, 2, 3, this time you won't get anything here. And when you say print answer, right, you are getting the correct answer. So what has happened? So what happens here, the 2 is passed to number 1, 3 is passed to number 2, and then 2 plus 3 becomes 5. It is return, meaning it will return back here, which means answer 1 becomes 5. And that's why we are getting the correct answer. So now what we need to do, whenever you need, it depends on what you want to do. If you want your function to return the value back into the main program, then you have to use return. Right? Now in this one, it's the add function, the same add function. We add in number 1, number 2. It will return number plus number 2. So we are getting 2 numbers from the user, and we call the add function, which will add these 2 together, and you get the answer here. And finally you are printing the answer. Okay, try this, run multiple times, and if you are satisfied, please raise your hand so that we can move to the next one. So if you have finished, please let me know by raising your hands so that we can move to the next topic.